Welcome to the podcast of the Ministry of Motion Pictures, where we seek to inspire Christian filmmakers, ignite a Christian film movement, and impact the new media landscape. I'm writer and director Todd Schaefer, and your host. My guest today is actor and director Christopher Shawn Shaw, who directed the movie Church People, which was written by the film's lead actor, Thor Ramsey. Church People is Shaw's feature directorial debut, but Christopher is no stranger to acting or filmmaking. He owns a production company called Anchor Productions, and he's directed and produced a comedy cooking series called Something Smells Funny. If you've been following or participating in the 168 film competitions, you'll have come across some of his work. In this episode, Christopher shares with us the 10-year-plus story of how Church People was made. And I'll give you one spoiler, it involves a goldfish. This is episode 46. Christopher, it's great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
So tell us a little bit about where Church People is.
It is available on demand as we record this. It should be on DVD soon, but I don't have a date. But this year is what I've been told. It was supposed to be on DVD and on demand at the same time, but the DVD part got delayed. But on demand on several major platforms, Christian Cinema, Amazon Prime Video, Google Play, Apple TV, Vudu, Vimeo, and I think I'm forgetting one. But if you go to the website, churchpeoplefilm.com, there's a buy button there. And when you click that, it shows you all the options for where you can get it on demand. You can rent or buy it as a digital download. So that's where it is now as we record this. People are still enjoying it. Every once in a while, I still get a message here and there. People who know I'm connected to the project say they saw it, they really liked it. Great responses.
That's great. How about the theatrical release? You had a theatrical release and then a host a screening.
And if I'm not mistaken, the host of screening, the host of showing might still be available. There is, I think there's still a button on the website now that says host a showing. And if you click that, you can fill out a quick form and see if you can get it hosted at your school or at your church. So I think that might still be an option. That's through Faith Content Network. So at least click the button and write Lori, her email's in there, and see. But yeah, we had a theatrical release in mid-March. It was a 3-day Fathom event. And I was told we were number 10 at the box office. So we made the top 10. Wow. If you average the screenings out of what was playing and how many screens on a per screen average, we were number 10 at the box office.
Wow, that's incredible. And how many?
And then we had a window. I think it was about a month after that, we had a window of premium video on demand. So there were virtual screenings through the website, or there was a Salem Now. And, you know, if you wanted to shell out $20 to see it, then you could see it then. But now it's cheaper than that, even if you want to buy it. And it's on demand on probably some of your favorite streaming platforms, including Christian Cinema. So that's really cool.
That's great. How many churches did the host a show? Do you know?
That's a good question. Our domestic distributor and marketing team at Collide Media Group would know that. They're in Tennessee, and they're the ones who put together that incredible trailer that we got.
Right.
Really fun trailer that doesn't give too much away, doesn't give the funniest parts away. There's some funny in the trailer, of course, but what I really like about that trailer is it really succinctly gives you a taste of what the movie is without giving everything away.
Yeah.
They did a really great job. A gentleman by the name of Scott Edge was their editor for that trailer. And so shout out to Collide Media Group in Tennessee. But they would have an idea of how many churches did the screening. I know there were a lot interested who weren't able to do it for one reason or another. But there were a decent number that decided to. That's my dog getting off my lap.
Good. So talk me through how you got into Christian film. Is this something that you wanted to do since you were interested in film, or did you come at it later in life?
Later in life, because growing up and what I went to college for was actually acting. I wanted to act in film. I wanted to be a quote unquote movie star. And so I went to college for acting. I grew up in Ohio. I went to Otterbein College, which is now Otterbein University in Westerville, Ohio. And I was a theater performance major, Bachelor of Fine Arts. And over the years, though, I had access to a VHS camera at the time. You all remember what VHSs were?
Yes, of course.
It wasn't beta; it was VHS.
I am that old, and I still have my my Betamax.
Oh wow, yeah. No, I don't think we ever had a Betacam, but I had a VHS. And when I was in college, my parents got me a VHS Slim Cam. It was only 4.5 pounds. It was really thin. And it shot really good standard definition video. So I would get these ideas in my head, and I would for scenes, and of course I would act in the scenes, and I would shoot scenes here and there. Rarely completed pieces, like a completed short or something. It was usually a scene, or maybe it was a really short self-contained short. And I just remember thinking, man, I wish I could be in front of the camera and behind the camera at the exact same time, because I love doing both of this.
Yeah.
But over the years, I found myself enjoying more and more being behind the camera. And so, I still like to act here and there, and I have a literal run-on performance in Church People. But really, my passion now is directing, creative producing. I also enjoy editing quite a bit. So yeah, I also do some consulting.
Good. And I notice you've got a lot of short films and mini trailers, on your YouTube page.
Yeah. Yeah. CSS 301. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that started at about, I think I got on YouTube around 2008 or 2009, somewhere in there. And so, yeah, I would have these little short ideas or whatever. And I put some of my 168 film projects. Shout out to 168film.com. If you're looking into getting involved in filmmaking or acting or cinematography, whatever it is, film related, do the 168 film competition. They have different categories now. I think traditionally, initially, it started out, it was a speed filmmaking competition, and it still largely is. Mm-hmm. But now you can do, if you've done a 168 before, you can do what's called an alumni entry, where you're not bound by the 168-hour time limit of doing it all in a week. So anyway, the way the 168 works is there's a theme for the year, and then there's a Bible verse that you randomly draw that's related to the theme. And then you springboard from there into about 10 or 11 days of writing the actual short film. And then after that, right after that, you have 168 hours. If you're in the speed film competition, you have 168 hours to shoot, edit, and turn in a finished short film. And Thor Ramsey and I did our very first 168 together. In 2010.
Cool.
And believe it or not, that's when he told me about what was then called Youth Group. That was what Church People's original title was. And so, yeah, this is a really fun story. I'm sort of backtracking now, but basically, I was a bachelor at the time. I was in my bachelor pad. I connected with Thor Ramsey. And I was a Thor Ramsey fanboy, because I knew his comedy. I saw him on the Thou Shalt Laughs, and he hosted Bananas for about 3 seasons. And Bananas was a clean comedy TV special that they actually, believe it or not, they shot it in Ohio. He didn't live in Ohio, but they shot it in Ohio. And but yeah,
these are all on Christian Cinema, right?
I don't know where Bananas is now. But I was part of, I did do the christiancinema.com Netflix style rent a DVD kind of thing.
Yeah.
And Okay, so let me tell the whole story because it's really or more in depth. Maybe not the whole story, but so I was in a funk in 2009, and I had this mindset like if I was going to do Christian content, it had to be heavy and meaty. You know, where's the meat and where's the heavy scripture verses and where's the heavy message and where's the tears and you know, it had to be a drama basically, but very, very heavy. But I'm a quirky goofball. And so my very first 168 was in 2008. And it was an intense subject matter that dealt with homelessness. And I wore way too many hats on that when I started, and I wrote it, I directed it, I edited it, I did craft services. I mean, like I wore like 7 hats on that thing. But as the actor in it, my quirkiness came out, and like it's a drama, and there's maybe a hint of comedy, but a lot of that had to do with just my quirky sense of humor. Mm-hmm. So I'm a quirky goofball. You mentioned my YouTube videos. You've seen that I'm a quirky goofball. So even when I would do something heavy like that, my quirkiness would come out. And in 2009, I just recently moved out of a housing situation that wasn't healthy. I had way too many roommates. And I moved out into my own bachelor pad. There was peace and quiet. And I sensed the Lord was changing my heart and that I needed to laugh. And so I was a member of ChristianCinema.com. They had the rental queue with the DVDs at the time. And I was just getting one after. And what I decided to do was I'll go to the comedy section of their rental queue and just go in alphabetical order for the most part. And early in the alphabet is B for bananas. And so and there's a bunch of those. And so I would watch the televised version, the non-televised version, the behind the scenes antics that they would do with the guests. And I remember sitting there in my bachelor pad watching Thor Ramsey pop up and, you know, the graphics at the beginning, and like they had these cutout graphics, and it was just really fun and animated. And I was sitting there going, man, I wonder what it'd be like to be friends with somebody like Thor Ramsey. And that was around the time I started getting more into Facebook, 2009. So I had this bright idea, like, okay, I'm going to start connecting with these comedians I'm seeing on, Thou Shalt Laugh, Michael Jr. and Thor Ramsey on Bananas, and John Branny and his guest on Bananas, and all these different comics that I was seeing in the Christian circuit. And like, I'm going to see if they're on Facebook. And so I just started friending them on Facebook, and they would graciously respond. And I was also at the time making these quirky videos. So you've seen my YouTube channel. Have you had the pleasure of witnessing Goldie the Goldfish?
No, that's one I did not see.
You missed Goldie the Goldfish. It's an integral part to this story, man. So seriously, I get this idea for a funny video about a bachelor and his goldfish. I didn't have a goldfish, so I went out and got a goldfish and did this video. That one idea turned into like 10 or 11 more videos. And most of them, I think, are on my YouTube channel. I think all of them, except for the last one I never edited, where I flushed him down the toilet.
Oh no.
Well, he died. I mean, but
okay.
But in my history of goldfish, I had 2 goldfish in college named Daryl and Daryl, and they lasted for like maybe a week, So this one lasted for nearly a year, or about a year. So lots of videos, and yeah, the last one I had like a mock funeral service where I flushed it down the toilet, and I never edited that one together, so that one's still on the shelf somewhere.
It's behind the scenes waiting to come out.
People might not have been ready for that one because Goldie was a hit or miss. So typically people either really liked Goldie the Goldfish, or they're like, what's this bachelor and his pad doing? Like, what's going on? But so anyway, I was doing these quirky videos, and I was sharing them, of course, on social media. I was also sending them to comedians. Like, hey, maybe somebody's going to want to do a collaboration or something. And little did I know at the time that Thor Ramsey he had this script called Youth Group. And he's like, well, if I'm going to get this thing made, I'm going to have to network with filmmakers. Here's a guy videoing his Goldfish. It looks pretty good. So he reached out sort of in an overt kind of, or not overt, covert kind of way. His message to me, and we'd had some messaging, but it was very sparse. Hey, how many, is Banana still happening? And, quick response to that. He's not much of a heavy communicator on social media. And now he seems to barely be on social media, but
that's where he hires his directors, I guess.
Yeah, that's where we met. We met on Facebook. And then wait till you hear the part of the story of how we met Stephen Baldwin. That was on Twitter. But so anyway, he sends me this message that's really vague, verbatim. Tell me about your film background, ... And I'm freaking out. I'm like, what's he want? Well, I had no idea he had a script. He wanted to make him no clue with that. But I'm like,
it's incredible.
He's done different kind of TV spots where I'm like, what does he want to interview a filmmaker? Maybe what is, and I'm freaking out, brain spinning, what's going on? And ended up finding out that, so I responded this really long response. He had 6 words. I had a really long response
because you're
telling him about my film background. I wanted to start out as an actor. I went to college for acting, blah, blah, blah. But as I'm responding, I sense, I guess you could say in my spirit or whatever, but I sensed, go ahead and ask him. Because I was going to ask him to be part of my 168 film project that year, 2010. And I'd already asked Michael Jr., I'd already asked John Branyan, and I was going to get around to asking Thor, but I never did. And then this message comes in. It's about 10 days before I'm going to go down to start getting ready and ramp up for the 168 film project. And I asked him, and he basically said, that could work. Send me the dates or send me the info. Again, long message, short message. And long story short, he was available to do the 168 that year. And that turned out to be, even to this day, one of people's favorite short films that he and I ever collaborated on, called Skip Listening. Have you seen Skip Listening?
I haven't seen that either, no. You
would probably really enjoy it.
Yeah.
It was a really great collaboration. I remember sitting in editing for it, during that 168 Speed Film Week. And we're sitting and editing, and I'm really hoping he wants to do more stuff together. And I looked over and I said, so you want to do this again next year? He's like, next year? I want to do this again next week. It was a great experience. We had a great time. And so we've done several 168 film projects since. We've collaborated on some stuff outside of the 168 as well. But it was as we were casting for Skip Listening in 2010, that's when he told me about Youth Group. And at the time, he wanted to direct and star in it. However, as we were filming Skip Listening, between takes, he said to me something about I don't think I want to direct it anymore. And I'm like, well, who do you want to direct it? Hoping he would say me. And he's like, you could direct it. And that's literally how I initially got the gig.
Wow.
So I was utilizing my resources, making Goldie the Goldfish videos. I was sharing my content. Thor saw it. He reached out. We collaborated on something. He changed his mind about wanting to direct and said I could do it.
Wow, that's incredible. You owe a lot.
So,
you owe a lot to that Goldfish.
May she rest in peace.
That's a great story.
Yeah, it's true. It's absolutely true. So I tell people, whether it's actors, filmmakers, cinematographers, whatever it is, there is so not an excuse anymore to shoot something. or set up a camera and act out a monologue. And this sounds so simple, and at first hearing you might go, whoa, that's kind of goofy, but think about it. People don't know you exist unless they know you exist.
That's right.
And people don't know your work unless they know your work.
Yeah.
They got to see it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I don't have a camera. Really?
Yeah.
You don't have a camera? You don't have a smartphone? I mean, seriously. Yeah. I mean, I had a smartphone. I had an iPhone 5S for several years. I just recently got that one I just showed you. But that one even had a decent enough camera that you could shoot a short, you could shoot a monologue. I mean, yeah, it's not the most ideal. Obviously, I love shooting on Red. I don't own a Red.
Yeah.
So if you don't have a Red or an Arri Alexa or know somebody who does, or you don't have the latest DSLR technology, I bet you got one of these.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it was good enough.
And the cameras on those are getting so good.
Yeah, it was good enough for Steven Soderbergh.
What's that?
It was good enough for Steven Soderbergh.
Yeah, there's been feature films even made by lesser filmmakers than Steven Soderbergh.
Yeah,
there's been feature films made off of less recent smartphone technology.
Yeah, shoot with what you got.
So there's really no excuse. So I mean, unless God tells you how to go about it differently, I tell people, I mean, that's the precursor. If God tells you something other than I'm telling you, listen to him. He knows better. But, if you don't know where to start or what to do, one, network with people who are like-minded, who surround yourself by people who are better than you and who do things you can't do. So, for example, I can write. I'm not the best writer. Thor Ramsey is brilliant. So if I have an idea or something, he's one of the first people I go to pitch it.
Yeah.
Because he can not, and he's also prolific. He can knock out a short film in a day or two.
Yeah.
He can knock out a feature script and it's not shoot ready, but it's close.
Yeah.
He can knock out a feature film script in like a month or 3 weeks.
That's great.
It just depends on how much, how long he sits down at a time and works on it. But he's prolific and he's brilliant and he's really great with comedy.
Yeah.
I mean, he's great at drama too, but his comedic chops, I gel with him. I mean, rarely do you get a script and read it and laugh out loud. I laugh out loud with his script.
That's so true.
So,
yeah. I mean, if you're not making films, how are you going to learn how to make a film? And YouTube is the greatest distribution place for that kind of thing. We have the technology that there's no excuse anymore. If you're going to want to learn, if you want to learn how to do filmmaking and you want to do a feature film, you've got to do a lot of short stuff first, right?
Yeah. And well, the other thing too is, I mean, you mentioned YouTube. There's so many free tutorials on YouTube. It is not funny. You want to know how to edit? There's whole courses that are free on YouTube of this is how you do this. And yes, they sell bigger, more in-depth courses, but if you want to know the basics, there's a guy on YouTube named I think his name is Darius, but the channel is D4 Darius. D for Darius.
I've seen his channel. Yeah.
That dude has done literal one-man feature film productions.
Yeah.
Meaning he's the man behind the camera. Yeah. He's the man editing. He's the man producing. He's the man. I mean, like, he's the cinematographer, and he walks you through that, like how to do that. Now, I prefer to work with a team because I'm not a cinematographer. I know that. I love finding interesting angles and stuff, but I don't know lighting worth a squat. When I do those shorts that you saw, most of them, or the one-man productions, most of those were natural lighting in the room, whatever. I just used the lights that I had there, but it wasn't like, oh, set up a C-stand and set up a this and that. I don't know that stuff. So I hire a DP.
Right.
Sound is huge.
Yes.
I hire a sound guy.
Underrated. And that's where people fail the most.
And take this nugget. Sound is more than half.
That's right.
Of your movie going experience. More than half. You can get away with a lot with sound that you can't without that quality sound.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I prefer a team, but this guy D. Fredarius, I mean, he does it all.
Mm-hmm.
So,
amazing.
I mean, there's all kinds of resources that are free. Some of the courses are pretty inexpensive, you know, maybe a few $100. Yeah, some of them are more, some of them are less. But I mean, yeah, if you know the basics and you practice and you use your smartphone or whatever, I mean, and actors, I mean, set up your iPhone on a little, I mean, you can get a cheapo tripod on Amazon or whatever, and set up your iPhone to do a monologue.
Yeah. For sure.
And then share it and get feedback. I mean, there's all kinds of Facebook groups, there's LinkedIn groups. So there's really no excuse. No. Like you don't have to wait for your phone to ring anymore. Like you don't have to wait for a big time producer. You don't have to wait for Bruckheimer to call you. You just don't.
Yeah.
And it starts with some basic like-minded networking, and you can do that in spades on social media. Now, of course, you got to be careful on social media too. There are creepos out there, and there are sketchy people out there. So,
yeah.
But you know, you see how many friends that somebody else has that are with your friends, and you can ask people, and hey, have you ever worked with so and so or what? I mean, like the information's out there.
Yeah. I mean, we Christians have been saying for decades that we need to get back to owning the media. We need to take control of the media and start making content that fits our worldview and is proclaiming our Savior. And this is the time. We have no excuse. We have all the opportunity of the world, all the technology. We can do our own distribution. We're not in need of anybody from Hollywood to tell us that we can do something.
So let me tell you the next part of the story. So yeah, so what happened after he said, okay, you can direct it? All right, so later that year, 2010, yes, this movie has been that old, by the way. This has been an 11+ year journey for me, longer for Thor as the original writer. Yeah. But so late 2010, we shot a proof of concept trailer. We shot a mock trailer from actual scenes from the movie at the time. So he went through the script at the time, pulled out scenes that would make a funny trailer, and we took a 12.5-hour day. And funny enough, we actually shot it at the same megachurch location, Calvary Community Church in Westlake Village. We shot it at the same location that we shot the feature at 6.5 years later.
Wow.
Really great how that came together. But anyway, we had a connection there. His name's Matthew Reichmeyer, filmmaker in his own right, editor. He's got a movie, Paul's Promise, coming out soon. But he was on our producing team at the time, in the early on, and he had access to Calvary Community Church. So we spent a 12.5-hour day, got a small crew together, actors together, and we shot a proof of concept. And it was online in December of 2010. And I am sharing that thing like crazy because the original plan didn't happen. The original plan was somebody who shall remain nameless, you know who you are, was supposed to share the proof of concept with 10 wealthy individuals that he knew, and hopefully get like, let's shoot this thing for $100,000, 10,000 each, you know, see if we can do it that way. For some reason, that part of the plan never happened. We did the proof of concept. Matthew Reichmeyer edited it together, did a great job. Again, Paul's Promise, go check it out when it comes out. But anyway, so yeah, and then that thing never happened where a certain individual was supposed to share it with his wealthy friends. And so I am just blasting social media with it over the next couple of years. I mean, like I would go on these spurts. It was share. I'm sure I annoyed some people, but it was a really fun. And you know how many times I heard, if I had the money, I would give it. I would give it towards this movie. If I had the money, I'd give it to you. Yeah. And I'm like, where are all the people with the money? Yeah. So I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn, and on Twitter, I'm blasting it to like, you know, because you can @ just about anybody on Twitter. I mean, Steve Martin, Jimmy Fallon, they all got a tweet from me, you know.
Oh,
wow. Pastors, you know, Mark Driscoll, entrepreneurs, Michael Hyatt, Michael Hyatt responded, actually, was like, this is really fun. He actually retweeted it and said, this looks very funny. So there were people who liked it, but then either when money came up or whatever, like it went nowhere after that. Yeah. Well, I tweeted from the movie Twitter account, I tweeted Stephen Baldwin, and I said something like, hey, would you be willing to retweet this? He responded, if I'm not mistaken, within less than an hour.
Wow.
And his response almost verbatim was, who do I speak with directly to see how I can best support your vision for this project?
Oh my gosh.
Wow. That is the first response from a name actor like that we got. And so, very long story short, I basically, from the movie account, was like, well, connect with our director, me. and so I think it was the next morning, I'm reading an email from Stephen Baldwin that basically says, I've been looking for filmmakers with the right comic sensibility to do something just like this.
Oh,
how about that?
Wow, that's incredible.
So then there was like a 20-30 minute conference call. Then there was an in-person meeting that lasted almost 3 hours. And basically in 2013, he was on board with his producing partner, John. And I'm thinking, wow, like, because they're talking, like, we're going to go hit up. There's 4 wealthy people we're thinking of right now. They're millionaires that we're going to hit up. And 3.5 years later, and none of the people they hit up initially is who funded it. Mike Lindell with My Pillow funded the whole movie. He and Steven were really good friends at the time.
Really?
And, he funded the whole thing. So approximately $1.5 to $2 million budget. Now think about this for a second. That is practically unheard of.
Yes.
For a first-time lead actor in a feature film, number 1 on the call sheet, first-time narrative feature film filmmaker. That was my first comedy narrative feature film.
Yeah, that's great.
$1.5 to $2 million budget. That is, I mean, it's practically unheard of even for somebody whose name you would recognize.
Right, that's true.
I mean, typically they try to make faith-based films. I mean, they're getting better nowadays, especially with the Irwin brothers and the Kendrick brothers. Their budgets are really getting up there better. But, lesser known filmmaker, you're looking at like $500,000 or less. I mean, there were people who wanted to make Youth Group for far less than $500,000.
Wow.
And we would have taken, at the time we would have taken it. Right, it's just, it never panned out for one reason or another. It just didn't happen. But that was like you get the 500 or more, you're like, no.
Yeah.
But Mike Lindell put up at least $1.5 to $2 million. I never saw the final budget.
Right.
But I know the budget we were going for when we were pitching and stuff was 1.5. And then we got some name talent involved, and that was Stephen and John. Got Donald Faison and Joey Fatone, and Thor and I weren't connected to them, and of course Stephen got Billy Baldwin and China Phillips, who are married in real life. A lot of people don't know that, but they've been married for like nearly 30 years in real life.
I didn't know that.
And Church People is the first time they appeared on screen together as husband and wife.
That's incredible.
So, it's a really fun story. And so many of your favorite movies have fun stories like this, or like underdog stories, like Rocky. I mean, that famous underdog story, Stallone's like, I'm acting in this. And they're like, who? I mean, do you know that Stallone turned down $300,000 in the 70s or 60s?
Yeah, I knew he turned down something. Yeah, I didn't know how much it was.
And how much is that now? I mean, that's a gold mine. He turned down because they wanted to buy it out from him outright and recast it. Yeah. No. He hung on and Oscar. I mean, come on.
Yeah, no doubt. How many days did it take to shoot?
20. We shot it in 20 days. That was a tight schedule. I would have loved 23 days. I would have loved 23 days. That would have been, I think, would have been less time crunchy. But yeah, 20.
One camera or two?
Oh, two for sure. Yeah. I love 2-camera shoots for multiple reasons. Efficiency in not only production, but also in post-production, because if you're editing within the same take, then you know the shots are going to match.
Yes. Right.
When you cut from one angle to the next.
That's right. Yeah. I love Stephen Baldwin's character. That he owned that character.
Well, you have no idea how much he owned that character. He created that character. He went out and picked out the wardrobe for that character on his own. Yeah, he definitely owned that character. That character was basically his creation.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
What a great character that was. Fantastic. Talk to me a little bit about the comedy that you used in this, because comedy is not something we normally see in Christian films or
sadly
Christian films. Yeah.
And the very, very interesting thing about that is people actually want more comedy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Thor and I did a comedy short film called One Night Stand, and it's a short that tackles the sin of adultery, but it's a comedy, but it's not like irreverent in that sense or anything. But it was at the 168 Festival in 2017. We shot it years earlier than that, but they had this 1 year at the 168, they had an open category where it didn't have to be solely a 168 film. And we shot it outside the 168 parameters years ago. And so open film, we could put it in, and we did, and it won audience favorite.
Wow. For
that day of screening. And so one that told me, okay, there's still an audience for this film in particular, but also, I mean, people love comedy.
Yeah.
And typically, at least my experience, my limited experience at festivals, typically it's the comedy or the quirky or the really unique ones that are going to win audience favorite. I mean, people love comedies.
Yeah.
But they don't get that much respect. And people tend to, for some reason, when they want to make a film, they tend to gravitate towards the heavy drama and the crying and stuff, like I did, especially, early on when I thought, well, if I'm going to do Christian content, then it's got to be heavy. Yeah. People tend to go for that. And when you're doing a short film and it's a drama, like, that's an actor's dream.
Yeah.
Getting to cry on camera, it's kind of a funny inside joke when it comes to film festivals, especially shorts. It's like, well, here's some more crying. We actually did a funny little little short for the 168 1 year, where the end, it was just a bunch of different people crying, and at the end it was like 168. We love crying. But it's true. I mean,
it's true.
But yeah, so this film is a satire, but what Thor likes to say is it's not a mean-spirited satire, and he says you can only satirize what you love.
Yeah.
So, and he says you can tell the difference, and it's true. If you're watching a satire from people who don't love the subject of the satire, you can tell because it comes across as mean-spirited and they're mocking it.
Yeah.
True. And some people get a takeaway from our trailer that we're mocking Christ or Christianity itself, and we're not. And if you follow Thor's through line through that trailer, he's the voice, he's the one saying, this is insane, we got to stop this.
Right.
So it's a satire, but it's not mean-spirited. We like to call it a gentle rebuke because it's done with humor.
That's true.
But it is a rebuke to that kind of ideology and philosophy and methodology where you got to get the butts in the seats and you do a show to do it. So it's basically the gospel plus bells and whistles.
Right.
And the point is, you don't need the bells and whistles. Right. It's the simplicity of the gospel, and it's all about Jesus.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
You don't need the bells. Jesus does not need the bells and whistles attached to the gospel.
That's right. But your comedy was so satirical. It was over the edge, But just backing it off a little bit, you're thinking, wait a minute, this could really be the case, you know?
It's funny you say that
there was
too,
a
because
fine line.
it's funny you say that too, because the origins of this story, and if you get it, try to get an interview with Thor. I mean, he'd totally be open to it, and he could tell you this backstory. But basically, Thor was monitoring low budget independent features, and he saw the movie Swingers, which isn't what it sounds like, but it's Jon Favreau and Vince Vaughn,
right?
And it was made for $200,000,
right?
And it made like over $4 million at the box office. So he was looking at stuff like that, but he really liked the comedic tone of that movie. Just like the dialogue, just the tone of the comedy.
Yeah.
And he wanted to take that comedic tone and put it in the evangelical subculture and make it about a youth pastor in crisis.
Very interesting.
And so he did that. And then at some point, I don't know when this was. This was probably like 2008 or 2009 or something. But his manager at the time got him a meeting with Sony. And at the time, I think they were just referred to as Sony Faith. Sony Affirm, I don't think existed yet.
Oh, okay.
But he had a meeting with Sony Faith, and he was practicing and going there to pitch 2 general market things that weren't faith-based, really.
Right.
And so he's practicing the pitch. He takes friends out to dinner, like they practice it, and he goes in and like, do you got anything that's got faith in it? Like, he's at Sony Faith and he's pitching non-faith-based So he says, well, and he didn't have youth group written. He had like 30 pages written. He didn't tell them that, but he said, well, I have this one that's a youth pastor in crisis. Like, we want to see that. Wow. So he went home. His computer was in the shop or something. He had to get it back and write it. And he wrote it in about a week. Like I said, he's prolific.
Yeah.
He wrote it in about a week, and then he sent it in. And there's a guy there named Josh Nadler, who I think is still with Sony Affirm. And Josh actually called him up and gave him notes on at least 5 rewrites, I think.
Okay.
So he would get notes, Thor would implement them, he'd send it back, he'd call him up. And on their last phone call with notes, Josh said, you know, what you need is a big idea for all the characters to come around together at the end. Mm-hmm. He's like, oh, okay. Well, that's a big idea. I don't know. But now his antennas are up for a big idea.
Right.
Out of the blue, he gets a call from his church plant pastor friend. And he's like, you're never going to believe what this church, that if I said the name, you would know the name, but you're never going to believe what this church is going to do for Good Friday. So what? What are they going to do? They're going to crucify a live human being. Like, no way. I'm looking at their social media right now. No way. So long story short, they investigate it further. It's not actually a live crucifixion, but it's a very intense, graphic passion play. And there were all these trigger warnings of like, you know, if you faint at the sight of blood, blah, 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 you know, all that stuff, right? And so Thor realizes that the evangelical church has gotten to such a place that for whatever their motives are, good or bad or skewed or whatever, that he actually believed that an American evangelical pastor would actually do something like this. And he goes, there's my big idea.
Wow.
So it came about that way.
That's incredible, because that was what I was thinking. It's like, well, this is over the top, really. I mean,
and nowadays it is, but you know, like we were talking before, like, what's it going to be in 10 years?
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
right.
So it's a gentle rebuke for that kind of ideology and methodology where I just got to get more butts in the seats so they can hear the gospel. So how do I top last year's sermon or last week's sermon? And what Thor likes to say in interviews too is that, like, you hit a glass ceiling, you know, and if you hit a glass ceiling and the people aren't getting what they thought was maybe, oh, this church is alive and spiritual and whatever. Mm-hmm. But if you keep topping yourself and you hit a glass ceiling, then they start feeling disenfranchised and like, oh, like, and then, and there's a staggering statistic out there that he likes to share that the average churchgoer leaves their church after 7 years. The average.
I've heard that. I've heard the average pastor leaves in 7 years too.
Oh, wow.
Actually,
I haven't heard that one.
Less than
wow.
that, though, sometimes, yes.
Yeah. Pastors have a lot of undue pressure. Yeah. I mean, it's insane. I mean, I used to work at a phone company call center. And before that, I worked at an emergency road service call center. Oh, wow. So I dealt with the general population and the public. And sure, they weren't all Christians, but Christians have their own eccentricities and quirks and whatnot too. We're human beings. So I can only imagine the crap that pastors go through, with just little chintzy stuff and then the bigger stuff and then the stuff that, I can only imagine. So lots of undue pray for your pastor. I need to do that more actually myself. So I'm confessing I need to pray for your pastor.
Yes, that's true. So what's next for you?
I would love to do more movies.
Yeah. I mean, is there anything specific other than what you?
Yeah. So here's something I wanted to talk about. Yeah. And you totally agreed when I mentioned it, but But a lot of people, will say something like, well, I can't fund a movie. No, maybe you can't, but you might know somebody who can, or you can at least get the word out, So if you see, even if it's not church people, I mean, I hope it's church people, but if you see something like church people or, you really love the Kendrick Brothers movies or the Erwin Brothers movies or whatever, purchase the content and share it.
Yes.
Share it on social media. Social media is huge. Yeah. We got a movie made, ultimately because of the hand of God. I totally believe that, through the tools of social media. Mm-hmm. Yes. I met Thor on Facebook and I met Stephen Baldwin on Twitter. I mean, come on. 20 years ago, it wouldn't have happened that way.
Right. That's right.
So if you like the content, share. When the DVD comes out, take a selfie with the DVD, share it on all your socials. Mm-hmm. The trailer's on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I share it on LinkedIn pretty regularly. If you see a post with a trailer, like it, comment, and share. That feeds the algorithm. It helps the organic growth because, newsflash, we don't have a Hollywood-sized marketing budget.
No, they don't understand that. That's
far less.
You need to have at least twice your budget for your marketing.
It's usually the same as your budget. I think. Well, it depends. Yeah, I think
depends on how low your budget is.
Well, I think perfect example, Star Wars. The newer Star Wars trilogy. Each of those films was somewhere in the neighborhood of $200 million to make. Mm-hmm. If I'm not mistaken, I think their marketing budget was double that. Yeah. But typically what I've heard is you want to have about the same amount of budget for your marketing as for making the film. So if our budget was 1.5 to 2 million to make it, I mean, at least $1 million. And to my knowledge, we didn't, I don't know what our marketing budget is, to be honest, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't $1 million.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. But the point is, it's egregiously low compared to Hollywood-sized marketing budgets.
That's right.
Who are, all over. They're marketing on IMDb and they're marketing on Twitter and they're marketing on, they're buying like banner ads and stuff. Like when you first go to this, I mean, we don't have that kind of budget for marketing. So word of mouth.
Yeah.
Share on social media, tell your family and friends and enemies. I mean, just share the crap out of it,
You need to do a video on that for the general Christian market. This is how you can support Christian filmmakers.
Yeah.
This is how you do it. Because I think a lot of them just don't understand, like you said, take a selfie at the theater or buy the poster while you're watching it.
Yeah.
What a great idea,
Yeah.
And, that would certainly drive up.
It helps keep it top of mind. It helps get it out there. And, and in today's society and whatnot, like there's so many movies coming out, practically on a weekly basis. It's like it can also get buried, So I mean,
everything.
This is still relatively new. It's this year, So let's do it up really nice this year and like just keep it top of mind.
There has always been a huge disparity between the amount of movies being made in general and the percentage that are Christian or faith-based, you know, and it's getting worse now, I think, with the amount of content coming out of all these other studios now. And it's just that still we're not really,
and they're laced
all that much. Yes.
And they're laced with mainstream, insane cultural narratives.
Yeah.
Laced.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's really bad. I mean, it's like there's a quote. It's like there's well, I mean, the Oscars announced like you have to meet these certain criteria before you can even be eligible for an Oscar. Yeah. You got to have this representation and that representation and this and that. Like,
even in your children's content.
Don't even get me started. Don't even get me started.
Yeah.
So the bottom line is, if you like it, I mean, I'm not telling you to share something you don't like, obviously. I mean, if you don't like church people, don't share it, you know, but if you like it, buy it, share it. Yeah, the trailer and the reviews and well, hopefully the good reviews.
The good reviews.
There's been some whoppers, but
you know, this is something I've been thinking about a lot, because when I first got into Christian filmmaking, because I came out of the secular work market, and I would think, you know, I think it's bad for us to be Christians to be badgered by Christian filmmakers to share their stuff when it's bad and it's not so good.
Correct.
And I'm sort of changing my view on that, because now I'm looking at the bigger picture now that I'm in it, and I'm seeing we have an environment. We're trying to build a Christian filmmaking community, and we can't do that in a vacuum. And if you look at any filmmaker, even in Hollywood, Ridley Scott, George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, any of them, they have flops.
Oh my golly. And some of their earlier stuff.
Yes. And you have to commit, like Steven Spielberg. It was Sid Sheinberg who said, you know, I'm going to commit seven years to you, or 7 films, and they could all be bad, but I'm going to stick with you and through that, and we'll see where you are at the end. Because he knew that Steven, even though he was a genius, he needed that opportunity to fail. And I think that's something that we do not give Christian filmmakers, is the opportunity to fail. If you fail, you're toasted, you're roasted.
Man, that's a whole nother podcast, brother.
But I think we need to be interested in thinking about how can we encourage Christian filmmakers and make this a viable effort? Because let's be honest. I mean, it is very hard to make a living doing what we're doing.
Oh yeah,
it's very hard. Even to get a film out, you're not making much.
No,
and in fact, the studio's making more, and everything's going into marketing. Yeah.
Okay, newsflash, everybody! I made this film in 2016.
Yeah.
So I got paid to do the film in 2016.
That's right.
It's 2021.
Yeah, connect the dots. What does that tell you?
And brother Todd here isn't paying me to be on this interview, so you know, come on.
That's right.
No offense to you, Todd.
No, of course not. But that's the reality. It's hard. Everybody thinks all their movie makers, they're making films, they're making.
I used to think that. I used to see Thor Ramsey on DVDs and be like, "Oh, he's a millionaire. He's got DVDs out."
No,
that's not how it works.
Yeah, you're still trying to pay your bills, you know. And
and you don't know how long it is between gigs. I mean, like, I haven't done a feature since 2016.
Yeah.
I did Something Smells Funny, which is a comedy TV show, Comedy in the Kitchen, in 2019, but still, that was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and then the pandemic, and like, it's not, I mean, I can only speculate, I don't know for sure, but I could name some prominent Christian filmmakers who are probably doing okay in the pocketbook.
Yes. But that's just like everybody. I mean, how many secular filmmakers are really making a lot of money? Well, they're not. A
lot of them are getting screwed on the distribution deals, actually.
It's only like the top.
Indie filmmakers and distribution deals. None.
It's awful.
Yeah. So yeah, just because you're a filmmaker and just because you got a movie in the theater, that doesn't mean you're wealthy.
No, it doesn't. You're still paying.
I mean,
it means you're probably in debt.
or you might have a wife who's a nurse.
Yes, that might be too. Yep. But yeah, it's yeah. I think we talk a lot about the importance of Christians being people who are influencers in Hollywood, in this media, who are owning this, yet there isn't the commensurate effort to make that happen,
Yeah.
So we do we say one thing, but we don't really follow through. And I think a lot of it is, it's not intentional. It's just the way we are in the history of Christian filmmaking right now.
Yeah.
I think we have to do something to change that.
Yeah, I have a few thoughts on that, but I think that's probably another interview, honestly, because it's so nuanced. I mean,
yes, it is.
It's just like it's. I mean, there's an element of that is, and I'm not saying you in particular, but there's an element of the idea of like, why can't we all just work on something together? And it's very naive because not everybody has the same sensibility. And honestly,
that's right.
Some of the stuff that gets praised is not good filmmaking. It is not good writing. It is not good.
Yep.
So if you take filmmakers that you really like and say, well, why can't you just work with everybody? And then filmmakers, there has to be some kind of a shepherding or something. Because otherwise it's good. I mean, like we had a number of professing Christians on, most of our cast and crew were not Christian on Church People, but behind the scenes, the main people behind it were professing Christians. Shocker. We didn't all get along.
Yeah.
I mean, we had different ideas and everybody wants to make the movie. Everybody wants to make the best movie possible. But we did have different ideas as to how to do that. And we did have different ideas as to what was funny and what wasn't. And it was a calamity at times. It wasn't pretty.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Well, that's why you're the director.
Well, and that's the other thing I like to share with people too. If you really love a movie or you really hate a movie, who usually gets the praise or the blame?
Yeah, the director
or the actor.
Yeah.
If it's a prominent producer, maybe the producer, like maybe Jerry Bruckheimer will get the praise or the shaft for something that, whatever.
Yeah.
But typically it's the actor or actors or the director.
Mm-hmm.
There are so much more involved in that. There were so many decisions I did not have control over. That's so many.
That's the thing. It's a war zone. Making a film is a war, and it's a runaway train that you're constantly trying to catch up on.
So, I mean, but I will say, ultimately, I am very glad to be attached to this movie. It was a major honor and a huge blessing and privilege to be associated with this, especially as my first comedy narrative feature. What an honor. I mean, I truly, genuinely mean that. I'm proud of this movie.
That's great. That's fantastic.
So,
well, you got a lot to be proud of. I can't wait to see your next one.
Well, thank you. Now, you've seen Church People or no?
Yes. No, I have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Stephen was fantastic.
Yeah, he's a really good actor.
Yeah. And I'd never seen him before. I'm like, who's this? He looks like Alec Baldwin. Who's this guy? And my wife's like, you don't know Stephen Baldwin?
He's only been in Christian films now for 20 years. I mean,
I don't know how I missed him, but I must have missed him somehow. I don't know how. But
yeah, that's funny. But yeah, no, he's a really good actor. And kudos to him for championing the project when, I mean, like, so many wouldn't, so I mean, like, he was our connection to Mike Lindell.
Yeah. Well,
big kudos to him for,
it was a great first film effort for you as well. But, you have all that background of all those short films that you worked on that.
It does help. And I will say this, and I really hope this doesn't offend anybody. I could see, I guess, how it might, but I genuinely mean this. I was literally on set walking around and just thinking, wow, this is just like doing a 168 film project, except more shoot days and more money.
Yeah.
Even somebody like J.J. Abrams will tell you that you still face the same challenges no matter what the budget is, time and money. Oh, and it was the same kind of thing. Yes. Okay. Now our actors had trailers, and now we have a catering truck and stuff. Like, I didn't have that on any of the shorts. Okay. Granted, but that's a money thing. But as far as the nuts and bolts of what my responsibility is, my job is as a director, it was like, I mean, Thor likens it to like going to filmmaking summer camp. I mean, that's kind of like what it's like.
Yeah.
Yes, it can be stressful. Yes, you don't always get along with everybody. Yes, there's challenges. But you're also making a movie. Yeah. I mean, think about that. How many people get to say I made a movie?
Yeah.
It's so many people's dreams to be in or make a movie.
Yeah.
And most of them will never experience it.
Yeah.
So no matter what the challenges are or anything, I'm off on another topic now. Yeah. The point is, the nuts and bolts of what my responsibility is, it was the same.
Yeah.
I have to communicate with the actors. I have to direct the actors. I have to communicate with my DP. I have to cast the vision for the day or the task at hand. It was like doing a really long 168 film project. I'm being totally honest. The only major difference is it was now we have name talent, now we have money, and now we have 20 days.
Yeah.
Instead of 2 or 3.
Maybe the headaches are a little bit bigger, but yeah, I agree. I think it's absolutely right. I mean, you can only read so much, watch so many behind the scenes, take so many courses until you actually make a film. There is a window or ceiling that you reach in your growth that you're never going to get.
And that's why I highly recommend doing a speed filmmaking competition.
Yeah.
Like, do the 48-hour competition, do the 168. Yeah. The 168 is more realistic because you get 10 or 11 days to actually write the short film, and then you get a week to shoot, edit, and turn it into 48-hour. You got to do all that stuff within 48 hours. That's crazy. I mean, I don't know about you, but I have to sleep sometime. I'm not in my 20s anymore.
Just a lightweight.
Yeah. But seriously, 168film.com. This season, we're ramping up to the festival is online this year. It's in November. So we did an alumni entry this year. I worked with a different writer, Darren Cogan. We did a really fun multiverse / time travel comedy short, but it wasn't a speed film. But when you but here's the cool thing about a speed film. It forces you to finish the project, or even if it's not a speed film, there's a deadline. It forces you to finish for years.
Yeah.
For years, my director reel was clips from 168 film shorts I did.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
If it looks good, people don't care.
That's right. You cut it up into a director's reel. Nobody knows where it came from.
If it looks good, who cares? Who cares if you made it up and shot it on your iPhone? If it looks good.
Yep.
Think, oh, I haven't heard of that one. Yeah, you're not going to because I made it up, or you're not going to because it was for a 168, but
yeah.
But and if you work with somebody who's a brilliant writer like Thor, or if you team up with the right people, you team up with people who know how to do what they do that you don't do, or don't know how to do as well as they do. I mean, basically, you surround yourself with people who do a better job than you do. I mean, that's kind of the secret,
That's basically it. That's
yes, Steven Spielberg is brilliant, okay? But have you seen his DP?
Yeah.
Janusz Kaczynski or whatever his name is? I mean, come on. Like, Steven Spielberg doesn't make his movies in a vacuum either.
Yeah, it's true.
You love or hate a film because of the collaborative team effort, not because of one person.
That's right.
It's as simple as that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great point. So how can we follow you?
My handle on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is @directorcss. My website is ChristopherShawnShaw.com. But even more so than that, I want to plug churchpeoplefilm.com. You can find out when the DVD, I mean, they'll announce there, of course, when the DVD's out. The trailer's there. The trailer's on my website too. But so yeah, churchpeoplefilm.com, ChristopherShawnShaw.com, and @directorcss. I'm also on LinkedIn, and I'm pretty active on social media. So you should be able to get a hold of me if you just reach out.
So if you can't get a hold of Thor, reach out to Christopher.
There you go. But Go to the Goldfish does not exist anymore. Go to the Goldfish is deceased. So I cannot get you any signed autographs from Go to the Goldfish. Sorry.
That's too bad.
And if you get one, it's a forgery. But that one more thing real quick.
Yep.
If you are out there and listening and you love to laugh and you love Christian comedy and you go, I might want to put up some money for something. Well, if you like what Thor and I do, if you like Church People, or if you like the shorts that we've done, Skip Listening, The Nose Job, Wireless, if you like any of that stuff and you want to see more, and you want to put up some money, then reach out.
Absolutely.
Reach out, because let me tell you something. This year alone, I repeat, this year alone, Thor has 6 scripts this year alone. 2 of them are still in the writing process, but 4 of them are done. They're all comedies. They're hilarious. One of them's more heartfelt. But I mean, right now we're about 2/3 in on a time travel comedy called The Anti-Time Traveler. An attempt to look at time travel through a biblical lens and with humor. And there's one, this is a great title. He collaborated with Brad Stein on this script called The Revenge of Adam and Eve. One of the most unique faith-based films I've ever read. I mean, that one's a bigger budget. That one's, because there's a lot of CGI in it, that's probably going to be closer to $3 to $5 million to do that one. But it is hilarious, and it tackles the sacredness of marriage.
Oh.
So there's some really fun shout outs to the Kendrick brothers and Kirk Cameron in that one. All an homage. Yeah. It's all a good fun.
No, for sure.
But I mean, it's hilarious. It is hilarious. Yeah, and we have a feature length version of Skip Listening, which was our very first short film that we did. So we have a feature length script for that. We could probably do that one for about $1.5 million. So if you know somebody who has the money to help out, the content's there. It's sitting on pages waiting to be produced.
Right.
And we're working on more. And like I said, this year alone, there's going to be 6 scripts that Thor's had a hand in.
Are you planning on doing a trailer
for
any of them?
Well, that's a little, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Ideally, hopefully now Church People can be our proof of concept for features. Like,
you would think
we did a feature. Here it is. If you like this and want more of that,
yeah.
Do we really need to spend the money that we don't really have on another proof of concept? You know? I mean, really, honestly, if you see the shorts that Thor and I have done, that he's written, if you see the feature film that he had a big hand in, I mean, it was his brainchild. If you see the feature film and you like that kind of that's the kind of stuff we do.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we do. So if you like that, then there's your proof of concept for what we can do right there.
That's right. Well, Christopher, I wish you the best, and I thank you so much for being on the podcast. And
thanks for having me, man. It's been great talking to you, man. I like you.
We good. I'm glad to hear that. We're looking forward to what you do next.
Well, thank you so much. And then one more quick plug. Something Smells Funny is on Tubi TV. It's free. It's comedy in the kitchen with comedian Scott Wood, and the episodes include Victoria Jackson, Jimmy Brogan, Mark Christopher Lawrence, and Bobby Collins. And Scott Wood nails it as the host. And so you can either download the Tubi app for free, and search Something Smells Funny, or just go to tubitv.com. That's TUBITV.com and search Something Smells Funny. You don't have to sign up for anything. It's all free. And so laugh and learn how to cook a healthy dish.
Good deal. All right. Well, thanks, Christopher.
Thanks, man. God bless you.
You can find more about Christopher Shawn Shaw, Church People, and the 168 Film Project in the show notes of this episode. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Ministry of Motion Pictures podcast. I hope this has been both inspiring and edifying. And if you wish to support the ministry and keep these podcasts going, you'll find information about how you can do that on our website at ministryofmotionpictures.org.